So let's say you really want to be a better jazz piano player. First, there's usually what we talk about on this channel, which is theory and harmony and scales and chords and comping and all of those technical skills. But for me, it's the other side of the equation that actually moves you along quicker. Hey, it's Paul Tobey here from Jazzmentl.com. Thanks for joining me for another one of my tutorials. In this video, I'm going to give you a 5-part formula to create anything that you want in music, in your life, in your business, in your job, in your relationships, whatever. It's basically the same 5-part formula for everything that you want to do, be, or have in your life that you don't have right now. I mean, if you really want to create a better life and do the things that you want to do and succeed at those things, then you're going to want to pay attention to all 5 parts of this formula. Let's get started with number 1. You got to know what you don't want in your life. I mean, yeah, we all have a laundry list of things that we complain about that we don't want, like our jobs or sometimes our relationships or whatever. But in this particular case, what I really want you to focus in on is where are you spending your time because you think you have to, that you can take parts of that time and apply them to the things that you do want. It's like a momentum thing. If you're unhappy enough at something that you do that you want to progress at, then that creates an internal conflict, if you will. And that conflict is so strong, you feel the only way to get out of that conflict is to actually move forward in some meaningful way. So one way to illustrate this point is, let's say you play jazz piano somewhat like this. You first would have to know that that's not great jazz piano playing. How would you know that? Well, you would compare it to recordings that you listen to, or maybe some of the tutorials that you see on this channel, or maybe some of the other things that I've played. The only way to know that that's not great is to have some experience. There is something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Many people believe that they're good at something simply by virtue of the fact that they have never done any research on what good is in that specific area of expertise. So they just don't have enough knowledge to know whether they're any good or not. I can tell you that's not great jazz piano playing. And to listen to others who perform jazz piano better than that, for example, we are playing the tune Stella by Starlight if you didn't recognize it. So I'm pretty sure you can hear the difference between those two. You need to know what you don't want in your life so that you can make conscious choices to change that. All right, let's move on to number 2, and make sure you stick around to the end because I've used all 5 parts of this formula to do many things in my life, such as get a recording contract, perform at Carnegie Hall, put out 9 albums, and I just released my most recent album just a few weeks ago. I've also built a business, have a great relationship, wonderful kids. I mean, I've used this formula for many things. So please just don't dismiss it. Let's move on to number 2. Now that you've figured out what you don't want in your life, number 2 is you have to know exactly what it is you want. Now, this is very important because a lot of people say they want this, they want that. They want to be rich, so they buy lottery tickets. There's a bunch of things that people do, but it's not specific enough. I want you to think about it like this. Think about the goal that you want to create in your life that has 3 parts to it. The first part is that it's risky. In other words, think about the thing that you want to do, be, or have in your life and create something that is absolutely risky. It's a big goal. You know, nothing ever big got created with a small idea. So if you're going to think, you might as well think big anyway. Number 2 is that goal must be measurable. And by measurable, I mean, how far did you get from where you started to where you either completed the goal or got part of the way there? Measuring your performance at jazz piano, for example. How do you measure that? Well, you would measure that with your ears based on how your performance level has improved. But unless you pick a specific goal, for example, you want to play your first solo piano concert for 100 people, that's a very specific goal. How did you perform? But how many people showed up? How long did it take you to do that? Which really is part 3 of that formula, which is you've got to put a time limit on it. I mean, a lot of people have goals, but it takes them years to complete them because they weren't clear on the specific goal and they don't really know how long it's supposed to take. So let's say you want to do this solo piano concert, make it a year goal. Say on this date next year, on or about this date, I'm going to create a concert, even though it might be free or paid or whatever, and I'm going to complete that goal. That's what number 2 means. You have to know what it is you want to do, be, or have in your life, and that goal must be risky, measurable, and have some kind of time limit. I remember that when I left the music business in my early 40s because of tendonitis in my arms, I didn't really know what it is I wanted. And that's why I went to do things like walk the Camino de Santiago to kind of figure out what it is that I wanted to do outside of music. And I decided that I wanted to build a business. I became a speaker. I built a training company, and I also built a marketing agency. These were all specific goals. And each one of them would have some kind of time limit. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. In our business, we had 5-year plans. So it's really important to set a very clear goal. Let's move on to number 3. Let's say you've chosen a goal that is really big. And I think that's good. It's like I said, big goals are better than small goals. The problem with our thinking is that we somehow feel inadequate to create something that is super risky. So we limit ourselves, and we call these limiting beliefs. And in order to go for that big goal, you're going to have to somehow internally and intrinsically clear out those limiting beliefs. So how do you do that? That's the ultimate question, because a lot of us believe that we can't do things simply by virtue of the fact that we've never done them before. Many people don't do things simply because of fear. They have a fear of failure. I've always said to people, you could read 100 books on overcoming fear. You could go to overcoming fear seminars. But the way to eliminate fear from your life is to go do the very thing that you're afraid to do. Let's say we're talking about jazz piano. If you really want to get over the fear of performing in front of an audience, no amount of books will help you. Just go perform in front of an audience and see what happens. That practice of doing something is the ultimate cure for overcoming fear. But at the same time, there's limiting beliefs that say, I don't have enough time. My hands aren't big enough. I can't reach tenths with my hands. I can't play fast enough. All of these are, in most cases, very limiting beliefs. I mean, sure, if you want to go run the 100 meters at the Olympics, you're going to have to be young and strong, and you're going to have to do that every day until you actually complete that goal. If you're in your 40s, it might not be the greatest goal, but that's not a limiting belief. That's just common sense. One way to clear out limiting beliefs is to go do the very thing that you're afraid to do. But other ways are things like mantras and sayings that you can repeat in your head to replace the negative thoughts that you have. For example, I have several sayings like, in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, in its own good time, for the highest good of all, I desire and intend this big goal to come into my life and into the lives of all those who hold this same intention. This or something better. So that's just a saying among many that I put into my head instead of the negative thoughts that cloud our mind and keep us where we are. All right, so that's number 3, clear out limiting beliefs. That brings us to number 4. This is where the rubber hits the road. Number 4 is simple. Take action. Nothing worth building or creating in life ever happened without some kind of action. Now, I'm going to request that you do a couple of things in this area. The first one is if you're going to create something in your life that you want to do, be, or have, one of the quickest ways to do that is to ask somebody who is that person, who already has that, who's already done that or completed that goal. That's a good part of action, is to go take advice from somebody who's already done what you want to do. It's a shortcut, if you will. For example, if you want to be a better jazz piano player, it might be a good idea to take advice from somebody who's created the level that you want to get to. For example, we have masterclasses on Saturday. We have paid masterclasses once a month for a group of people who have decided that that's what they want to pursue. They want to be better jazz pianists, and they've all created goals to that end. And the other part of taking action is you actually have to do something. You have to take that advice and you have to put it into practice. That means you have to carve out time in your life. One good way to do that is to look at all the things that you don't want to do and replace them with the things that you do want to do. You have to schedule time in order to practice or in order to actually do something. Nothing ever good happens in life without taking some type of action. It just doesn't happen on its own. I'm going to pause for a minute and play you a little bit on the piano. This is a video that I posted to the Jazz Pianist group that got a pretty good response. It's a song by Chick Corea called Spain, and if you ever wanted to get close to this level of playing, or somewhere between where you are now and where this level of playing is, then like I said, it's a good idea to take advice from somebody who's already there. I hope you enjoyed that performance, and if that's a level of jazz piano playing that you actually want to achieve, then I might suggest that you check out our jazz piano mastery courses. I'm going to put a link up here in the corner to those courses. We'd love to have you in that small but mighty group. All right, let's finish off with number 5 in our 5-part formula of how to do, be, or have anything in your life that you don't have right now. And that 5th part of the formula is a little hard to understand. In fact, it took me quite a while to get this part. It's called understanding and practicing the law of flow. If you think about the way a river flows and you were to fall in, I'm pretty sure you'd have enough common sense to know that it's a lot easier to follow the flow of the river than it is to swim upstream. Life is kind of like that. Whatever we resist, in other words, the things that we feel negative about, whether that's our jobs, our relationships, our money problems, the way that we play jazz piano, whatever we resist in life will persist. And so the law of flow basically teaches us that we have to kind of go with it. Yes, it's important to take action, but any resistance when you take action, for example, let's say you sit at the piano and you play a couple of bars of something and then you get immediately anxious. You have a lot of negativity about what you're playing. It's like, I'm never going to get there. It's going to take forever. I'm such a bad piano player. This is contrary to the law of flow. The law of flow, or some people call it the law of detachment, is to literally detach yourself from any specific outcome. Sure, we're going to set goals and we're going to set limits on those goals and timelines, but if we don't meet those, it's not a good idea to get completely down on the process and have a lot of anxiety about it. So that's what the law of detachment says. You must detach from the outcome. Whatever comes is kind of a universal way to say this is coming to you in the exact order that it needs to come to in order to get to where you want to go. It's never a straight path to a destination. There are always going to be roadblocks. One of the ways that I think about the law of flow is to think about what we call the 3 resistances in a road rule. I head out in a specific direction based on very clear goals that are, of course, risky and measurable and have this time limit. I head out on that path, and if I encounter some type of negativity, it usually occurs with other people, but not always. Of course, it can just be your own anxiety. If you have tremendously negative feelings about the direction that you're heading in, stop, reassess, and maybe make a slight recalculation, just like your GPS does when you make a wrong turn. And then if you encounter 2 other resistances immediately after that, could be a few hours to a few days, but if you get these like 3 resistances in a row, that's kind of like the universe screaming at you saying, hey, this is not the correct path to your destination. You may have thought that it was, but we've put these roadblocks in place to make you understand, in fact, we've done it quite loudly by creating these negative resistances, that you absolutely need to listen to what the universe is telling you. Go another way, pick another direction. If you decide to keep going in the same direction on the same project, on the same practice routine, whatever it is you've done or chosen to do, then one more resistance, which is 4, absolutely stop. Dead in your tracks. Go back, reassess, pick a new path. This happened to me several times on the Camino de Santiago. I mean, I literally got lost like 7 times. Talk about the universe screaming at you that you're going down the wrong road. But most people don't pay attention to that. They'd rather do things like complain and justify their situation because other people are just as much a failure as they are. This is not the way to create what you want to do, be, or have in your life that you don't have right now. So these 5 rules are the rules that I follow, not just for the piano, but in my entire life, for many of the things that I've created. And if I look back on my life, I really don't have any major regrets. I pick big goals because, like I said, nothing ever big got created with a small idea. For many years, I did not know this formula. I wish you the best with it. I trust that some of you will try it. Many of you, of course, didn't even make it this far in the video because you probably thought, hey, I've heard this already. It's all mumbo jumbo and I don't need that. I just need to practice harder and I need to woodshed all my lines. Yeah, I mean, you could do it that way, but if you want to gauge the results of that way versus this way, take a look at your current results and ask yourself, am I where I want to be? Thanks so much for listening. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. I'd also like to hear if you have some extra things that you do in your life to create the things that you want to do, be, or have. Please put them in the comments below. And if you'd like to subscribe to our channel, we'd love to have you. Just click the little bell and we'll notify you of all the upcoming videos that we're making. And if you really want to start getting better at jazz piano and you're essentially a jazz beginner, I have this 10-part series called The Ultimate Guide to Jazz Piano for Beginners. The very first video in that series is right here.